Wheels, more fondly known as WOW Delivery Service, brings the entire clinical experience full circle. IGH has remained committed to creating the future of healthcare delivery. Gone are the days of sending loved ones outside the country for basic medical services. Innovarex Global Health offers a new peace of mind and takes pride in delivering the quality of care we all deserve. We live in a day and age where technology is creating a world without borders, filled with unlimited potential to improve the lives of the people around us. Innovarex Global Health ushers in a new way of leveling the playing field with increased access to quality healthcare services delivered at your doorstep. Our qualified professionals are equipped with state-of-the-art point-of-care testing technology to conduct tests such as kidney function, liver function, electrolyte tests, body composition, hemoglobin, A1C, and many more services with the highest efficiency in delivering results. The addition to our flagship Wellness on Wheels, more fondly known as WOW Delivery Service, brings the entire clinical experience full circle. IGH has remained committed to creating the future of healthcare delivery. Gone are the days of sending loved ones outside the country for basic medical services. Innovarex Global Health offers a new peace of mind and takes pride in delivering the quality of care we all deserve.
Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3 or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible payment plans at our Sanyang Seaview Estate, where you can enjoy the cool breeze with modern infrastructure such as tar roads, covered drainage system, modern electrification with street lights, gated entrance with security posts, and social amenities such as gas station, shopping mall, medical clinic, park, schools, children daycare, and a lot more. Our dedicated team of professionals will keep the estate clean at all times, provide security and patrol team within the estate premises, install latest technologies such as CCTV, Wi-Fi, home network installation, solar panel, and power backup system. Also, check out for our additional home facilities and interior design service such as premium tiling, wall plaster, home landscape, fingerprint home lock, and a lot more. Visit our office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464-838. WhatsApp us on 3259220. Or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJ Investments. EJ Investments, we are first in properties.
In communication, connectivity is everything. We ensure that the links never sleep. Quantities and qualities, all in our data service, providing efficient, reliable voice and data service. We believe if you're not up to speed, then you're going backwards. Communications have to flow as fast as the speed of light. Whatever business you're in, having someone who understands your needs is critical. That is why we just don't offer you technology, we offer you solutions. Enjoy Gamcel's internet broadband anytime, anywhere. Your national operator, Gamcel, Yai Baram.
Agada.
Mbijan aganyadi.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyinji.
Okay. Korsa. Nsila ID soto.
Ah, sa soto. Sorry. Agada.
Mbijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariaka.
Ah,
mbare ki janna nun kunu bara tariaka.
Ah, jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbari ya bere. Ha. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato ni fo bolong blabe to.
56 branches mola sota Gambia jam.
Ha?
Ha. Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kodo kiya bere to. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta même na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw jannam number 1 di nyonta andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi ma ni domorol ni fana be teat Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je
ha wo moy o diat ha
apelenta
baraka ni lafta nyelen kendol e bina
yalo bu kanyi la ko la baraka ba
yalo ndel ciosano lo
baraka.
Ninth rather, 2020, and we have gone how many days into Ramadan?
I think 16. I've stopped
forgot
counting.
the count, 16 or 17, I don't know, depending on when you start. All right, this week I have the honor to be visited by Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, who is the dean, I know, of political science at the University of the Gambia, himself an active lecturer of political science. He's also a social commentator and politician, if you like, because he's a member of the Citizen Alliance, CA. But this week, of course, we will be having his perspective on major stories that happened throughout the past 7 days, if we can cover all that is. Welcome to the brunch, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cham. Thank you for having me.
Good. In case you are wondering where Nyima is, she is sound and well. She's just made a trip to the village and will be back with us, inshallah, next Saturday. Doctor, okay, let's begin with the major thing, of course. It is still difficult to get COVID-19 out of the news, not least because not just the medical aspect of it, but a lot of controversy about how the whole system has been managed, whether it is the finance, the famous relief package, as well as the testing or the lack of it in the country. Now we have 20 cases. Are you surprised that from the outbreak up to now, the Gambia has only 20 cases? In fact, I think it's 8 or 9 active cases. The others have been either discharged or one, of course, died. Are you surprised that we still have only 20 cases?
I'm not surprised, considering the fact that we've not been doing mass testing in the Gambia. So we wouldn't really, we might be underreporting. Countries that have been showing exceptionally high number of cases like Ghana, Senegal, South Africa, they've been doing mass testing. That is why.
And you think they've been more transparent?
They've been also more transparent. But also in the Gambia, I wouldn't say they're not transparent, because I think they've been quite transparent. They've been. I didn't see any reason why they should hide cases anyway, and I don't think they would do that, because with the MRC involved, and MRC is a well-reputable institution, I don't think they will engage themselves in dubious activities of hiding cases. That would be a public health disaster for this country. But by and large, obviously, Gambia might be underreporting, because we've been doing. That is why, if you've looked at the past couple of days when we initiated community testing in Bakau, we've seen an exponential rise of the number of cases from 17 to 20.
If you if you see back out, the doctors, the authorities themselves tell us 99% or 90%, if I'm right.
90%.
90% of the, the samples they've brought so far have
negative.
Positive, negative.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to show that there's COVID in a large extent.
Yeah, but it's still too early because of the sample that's been tested. Yes. I think we need to be very cautious with these figures as well. And one of the key things with the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, is that we still, even scientists, epidemiologists, are still grappling to understand exactly what this virus is in terms of transmissibility, in terms of symptoms, so many of the other things. That is why I was reading an article recently saying, why is there so few cases?
Yes.
In Africa, but particularly they're also comparing countries. Why is it that Gambia is having 20 cases and Senegal is having 1,000+ cases, even though they are neighbors? So what explains it? Is it the environment?
People said the virus mutate, the way it changes, or some of the characteristics are still beyond comprehension.
Exactly, that's why I'm saying there is so much uncertainty about the virus. We don't know. There are those who think it's because of the response of the governments, or because of the measures taken place by the government, or is it because of the environment? Is it because of what is it? It might be a combination of factors. So currently, as we speak, not much is known about the virus, and there is no cure yet for the virus. So that is why we need to be very cautious in how we approach this whole thing insofar as Gambia is concerned. But one thing that is clear is that based on reports from the health ministry, we've got 20 cases so far in the Gambia. But there are concerns that might be low because we've been under-reporting, not testing properly. So perhaps if we start doing mass testing, we might see a rise, or we might also realize
mass
that no.
testing. The testing in Bakau was voluntary. I think because word went out that a few of the cases discovered, the previous week came from Bakau. So the government decided to do a mass voluntary testing, and people of Bakau responded, a couple of hundreds. Do you think these things should be mandatory, or it should just be left to, communities or societies who wants to volunteer and just?
I mean, mandatory would be problematic. You cannot for only those who have been traced or have been found to have been in contact with people who have been infected. Perhaps those ones who are quarantined or people who have traveled from outside and they are coming. But you cannot go to people's homes and say mandatory testing, even though there is no reason for you to do that. I think every Gambian should know that it is our responsibility to protect ourselves and to protect each other. So it's a public health emergency. These are circumstances that nobody was expecting. So therefore, obviously, if the government is providing testing facilities for people to go and test, it's for your own good. Because one thing about this virus is that you can be carrying this virus without knowing that you are carrying it. And in fact infecting people in the process. Exactly. Because there are those who have, they are what they call asymptomatic cases. You might have the virus, but not the disease.
There are, in fact, before this disease, there's what we call carriers.
Exactly. So you'll have the virus going around, spreading it without having any symptoms. You might have the virus without having the disease. You remember the HIV, HIV and the AIDS. You might have the virus, but not the disease, which is AIDS. It takes some time before it really develops into that.
Or you might not even develop it.
You might not even. So obviously,
you will transmit others who will get sick.
Exactly.
You will know that you are the one who made it.
Exactly. But people like us, we are not very we are concerned with the medical aspect of it, but that is not our domain. We have the medical experts who focus on. People like us are focused more on the social and the economic
where we are going
aspect of it. And for me, that is also key, because you have to understand this virus doesn't only have a medical component. It also has an economic, social, and a political component, because it really affects every facet of society as we are seeing today. Economies are going down their knees. There will be a global recession far worse than what we witnessed in the Great Depression in the 1930s. Currently, as we speak, 85 elections have been postponed around the world. Societies have been, there are so many disruptions in the education sector. So there are many things are happening, and I think for me, these are some of the things that we missed as a country. When it just came in, we just focused on the medical aspect. That is why if you look at government's response, the strategy that they came up with only focused on how to contain the virus, but not the corresponding mitigating measures that can mitigate most of the
well, government finally came with one. They called the COVID full relief, $700 million. We had controversies, people expressing opinion that it should have been this, should have been that. How did you see the response?
But was that the right approach? I mean, obviously, you see, that is one of the flaws that we do as a country. We are very reactive as a country. We don't make decisions based on our current realities, by understanding our realities and try to make decisions based on that. Now, just because one country is giving rice to its population doesn't mean that we are also going to buy rice and give it to our population. Now, we don't know for how long this whole thing will take. It could take 1 year. Now, you spend $700 million to buy rice, oil, and sugar, and you give it to families. That rice, sugar, and oil will finish in 2-3 weeks. So after that, what? Is that a sustainable
Are you going to be buying
measure?
700 million?
Are you going to be coming again to buying rice all the time?
No,
so I think what the government could have done, I advised them when they just started, when this whole thing started, that you need to bring all your epidemiologists together and your social scientists and your economists to sit as a task force to not only design measures how to contain the virus and prevent it from spreading, but also how to come up with a response that is sustainable and that is long-termish.
And what do you think would be sustainable? Because you give food to people. Are you gonna keep giving them rice or giving them? Or are you advocating for them to be given money?
Now that is why I say, look, the issue is that the measures that government put in place has far-reaching implications. Now you tell people not to go out and find money to eat. You have to understand also our society. Majority of our people live from hand to mouth, and also understand that it's a very fragile country. Families are very fragile. There are some who live just on the peripheries of poverty, and with one disaster they can really fall into the poverty trap. You have to understand that our small medium enterprises are also struggling, and they are just trying to stand on their feet. So all this will be affected. So what the government could have done is to sit and see what kind of packages are sustainable and long-term.
And according to you, what
so for me, what could have been done is, for me, the rice, oil, and sugar was not the solution.
What would have
for me, what could have the government done is that today, I mean, I don't know the current figures in terms of the households in the Gambia, but the 2013 census told us that we have 148,000 households in this country. So I would assume that currently we have about 200,000 households. I'm not sure.
No, that would be on the high side.
That's on the high side. Now, let's give cash transfers to these households. I mean, if you give every household $100 a month for 3 months, obviously, and also try to put credit facilities, tax breaks, incentives to small medium enterprises, but also come up with other stimulus packages at the macro level. I think that could have also helped a lot. But also one of the problems we also had was that why this whole thing happened is that we did not also think through some of the measures we were taking. We were also reactive. Okay, this country has closed schools. China did lockdown.
But it's not just because we are copying. Because it makes sense to close schools because it will stop potential transmission on a larger scale since students will mingle. If you don't do lockdown or partial lockdown as we have in our case, people well, of course, this partial.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just giving an example. What I'm trying to emphasize is that we could have really understood our own, come up our own measures that fits our situation, and not just do what others are doing. Because every country has its peculiar nature. Every country has its own. So I'll give you an example. Even though I don't like to make comparisons with some of the Western countries, Sweden is an example. Yes, you can say Sweden has a very strong health sector. They have enough ICU beds. They have enough ventilators. When there is mass sickness, they can put. But they had a different approach. Even though the whole world was,
there was not much noise even.
But they still the train was still moving. Bars and cafes were still open. Schools were still open. But they closed universities. So they had their own approach based on their own society and based on their own realities.
Yeah.
So I think what the Gambia could have done also is done that. But I mean, maybe closing the schools was good. Maybe most of the measures, we wouldn't know now exactly the measures we've taken, how effective they are until this whole thing is over and we do an evaluation. Because perhaps now it's too early because we are saying we have 20 cases. Is it because government acted quickly to close the borders and to lock our airspace? Is it because they acted quickly?
One thing you can argue, just evidently effective, is the closing of the airspace.
Obviously.
Because our first case was somebody who traveled from overseas. Certainly, if that has shown us that if we had continued to leave the airspace open, we would have got more.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That I mean, the government really should be commended to some extent for the swift action they've also taken, because that also might have been the reason. That is why I say for now, it will be difficult to do how do you call it again? A proper evaluation of exactly how effective were these measures, obviously, until and unless this whole thing is over. That is why I've always advocated that when this whole thing is over, we need to set up a small panel to really investigate not only government's response, how effective it was, whether they responded in time or not. Had they responded in time, could have we saved more lives? So it's still too early because we still don't even understand the extent of the cases we have. But also in terms of the finances, how were the finances spent? Were they spent properly? Because obviously the COVID-19 has created a lot of opportunities for corruption. And that is why we need to understand it. But I mean, just to answer your question, for me, I didn't think that the distribution of rice and oil, I think that was very short term and it can backfire because we don't know how long this lockdown will take. They're telling us that the current state of emergency will end on the 16th of May.
That's what I'm coming into.
And then if we extend it to another 45 days, I mean, this bag of rice will finish in some families 2-3 days, 2-3 weeks. So what are we going to distribute again? So I think government could have really found a way whereby we could have a 3-month plan, cash transfers, support small, medium enterprises, see how you can...
I mean, you've just said we have, from the last census, 140,000 households. If you are to give them cash transfers, even if it is 1,000 alone, that's quite a million something.
But look at the amount of that has come in. I mean, currently we are talking about $80 million.
That have come to the country.
That has come or that is about to come. Okay, the government itself put $512 million aside. Dollars. That's about $10.2 million. From grants alone, from the EU and the World Bank, is $20.2 million. That's about over $1 billion. Now you have emergency credit facility from the IMF. That's about $47-point-something million. So altogether, we have about $80 million.
Which is how many dollars?
Now that's about $4 billion. Almost $4 billion is almost. If you take it at an exchange rate of $52 per dollar. $52 is per dollar.
Combine external and internal mobilization.
Exactly, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. That is just tip of the iceberg because most obviously more will come, and you've seen EU always pumping in money. So obviously, if we could have done our homework and they give, and not also all households also need the support.
Some are better.
Some are okay. So we go for those households that are really that really need the support. So therefore, we should be able to give every household at least $100 a month for 3 months. That's about $15,000 is $5,000 is a month for 3 months. At least that could have gone a long way too.
But the other expenses should come from this same money, health. Quarantining and other health costs.
But look at, I know, but I mean, what
PPEs or stuff.
But where are they? We haven't seen any PPEs. I've seen police officers walking in the streets without having face masks. I've seen health officials going around taking samples without even having the proper equipment. And yet, you go to hospitals in Basse, in Soma, referral hospitals, there are very limited sanitizers. But then again, you know what this government is telling us? That so far they spent $160 million, $100 million on ambulances and other health equipment. Now, they are telling us that they spent almost over $14 million on hotels alone. Exactly. I mean, what kind of hotels are they? Now, they told us they spent $12.3 million on vehicles. How many vehicles do we have that are parked, that are not moving? So obviously, they said they've spent about $3 million on sanitizers. Yet we don't see any sanitizers. So for me, I think it's about knowing the priorities, thinking deeply, and coming up with solutions that are resilient, that are long-termish, and that can really solve our problem. But I mean, those kind of political moves. Like bringing bags of rice, expose it everywhere. And I'm even hearing reports that I cannot verify this, but I've spoken to people who said that in fact a bag of rice was not taken to their sugar. They even measure kind of some cups, they put them in bags, plastic bags, and give it to them. So imagine spending $700 million on food. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Right. There's also, like you said, the financial aspect of it. The minister was the other day at loggerheads with National Assembly members as to whether it was a good practice to be varying, that to be getting money, reallocating monies from one subject matter to another. Some MPs call it fraud, and the minister came hard defending that this practice is acceptable as long as it comes from the money that you've already approved.
Yeah, but is it legal? I mean, obviously, environment according to the Honorable National Assembly is fraudulent because I mean, if a money has been earmarked for a particular purpose by a particular authority, and you want to change the use of that money to something else, I think it was always.
I mean, if there's an emergency like our situation, there's an emergency. And I'm not taking money from where you have not approved. I'm not taking from the money that you said, you must spend this $100 for this. But then something happened, and I divert $50 from that 100 to do something to take care of that. Yeah, you said I should come back to you before I can do that.
Yeah, but I don't think in this case it was such an emergency whereby you cannot. But I mean the National Assembly is on. It's not like it has to take weeks and couple of months to get the approval from the National Assembly. And for the sake of transparency, it's important. For the sake of accountability, it's important because once we start allowing
I've had some very, very prominent and good accountants who said environment may not be fraudulent. Actually, it's just that it's necessary and it's common practice.
Yeah, obviously, like the minister said, it's common practice. But again, like I said, the National Assembly as an oversight body over the executive and also over how public money is spent, they have also a right to query, to ask them, why did you do this? Why didn't you come back to us? I mean, if we tell you that the budget is obviously confirmed by the National Assembly, obviously, and they say, okay, spend $100 on this. Now, if you are going to change that, I think it's only right to come back to the National Assembly. But even, I mean, whether, now the question can be, can you inform them post spending? Is that also allowed? Exactly. So you don't, not necessarily have to come before you do it. But after doing it also, you can come and, so it's a matter of, it's a matter of debate.
That's what the finance minister did. And
exactly. It's a matter of debate. But again, what we are trying to do is that we want to make sure, the whole bottom line is, we want to make sure public money is effectively spent and it is transparent and it is accountable. That is the most important thing. Now, for me, whether they come before or they come after, as long as the rules are not violated, that is the most important thing. And I think the Constitution is very clear about public accounts. That it's very clear. I was reading it the other day, and it is very clear. As long as the rules are not violated, as long as there is accountability and transparency, I think that should not be a case. Like you said, we're in a state of public emergency, and public emergency means that sometimes some rules governments have to operate beyond outside of the framework of the law, of course.
Okay, but that shouldn't be an excuse to really, put in place a whole system that will extort people from their money, or make inappropriate expenditure.
That is what we are seeing. We've been seeing very dubious procurement processes, in the sense that I was reading a breakdown. They said they spent $600,000 is on plastic buckets, on sanitizers for National Assembly. So, but how was the procurement made? How, I mean, did they follow due process, or was it because that is slow? So at some point you come to realize that it might encourage nepotism, it might encourage corruption, and it might encourage...
They said by their own admission, or nearly 40-something suppliers were engaged in the procurement of the rice. Some big, some small. Some had no history of... business. They had to rush and take 10,000 bags or whatever. And in
most cases, I've also have reports, some have gone to the stores and brought out rice that have been stored years ago that are not even fit for human consumption. Because currently, in fact, we are very lucky. We are lucky in the sense that the amount of rice that have been bought in this country recently and food items could have really led to a food shortage in a couple of months' time. But why we are lucky is that because the borders are closed, because you have to understand that most of the food that comes to Uganda doesn't stay here. A huge chunk goes to Guinea-Bissau, Mali, and Casamance.
Yeah.
So because the borders are closed, that is why we have to make sure that we stop the contraband of this. Because once the borders are open, and most of the food goes out, the one we consume here, it could really bring problems for us. And the UN is estimating that the current coronavirus could really bring about food shortages in the next couple of months. And therefore we need to be very careful in terms of food stock. We need to be really careful.
Well, at least the police and other things are doing very well. They're trying to counter or rather arrest people who try to take food from here and take in.
But it's difficult. I mean,
that is legitimate business until this emergency.
Yeah, but it's now a public. The borders are closed. But the borders are closed. That is why we close the borders. I mean, if they say borders are closed, except otherwise stated, even it's not only for people but also goods and services. But obviously, if the police arrest one, another three have succeeded, because we are very porous borders, and the police also are not being given the right equipment in terms of transport and facts to do their job.
And they also need to be very honest.
Of course, yes. And also the issue of corruption. I mean, exactly. So for me, I commend the frontline workers, the health workers, and I've also recently read that some of the health workers were about to even go on strike. Those at Kotu, because of they hear about the millions, and that doesn't reflect the equipment. Exactly. So obviously that is why it's tricky. But for me, I think for now, we need the support of every Gambian, whether private, public, every citizen, the government. This is a crisis. This is a pandemic. These are not ordinary times.
All right, Doctor. We've dealt with the finance and the socio-economic and the medical part. Now let's talk about how it affects politics. That's your area of expertise. You are a political science lecturer. If I'm going to take away your interest in politics in the CA. But yes, the other time you yourself provoked a debate. You said this COVID should not be used as a base or as an excuse for us to unnecessarily delay the political process that we Gambians have embarked on from 2017. You already said that some 80 elections have cancelled around the globe because of the COVID. Did you fear that this government will use this COVID to procrastinate on some of the reforms and electoral or whatever laws reform we have in the country?
You see, you have to understand one thing, that the Gambia is in a transition. And the transition means that so many reforms are initiated. Security sector reform, constitutional reform, and some other reforms are initiated, TRRC and so on. So even though it's a public health emergency, even though when I was talking earlier on that we could strike a balance between health security and economic security. That is, we could strike a balance between protecting people from the virus in the streets. At the same time, protecting people from dying of hunger in the homes. We can do that. However, when it comes to the political bit, it's a bit more tricky in the sense that in politics, you need crowds, you need large numbers of people. Campaigning, canvassing, referendums and elections, you need those kind of things. But in the Gambian case for now, even though there's a public state of emergency, public gatherings are banned, not banned, but at least they are restricted. It is going to be problematic. However, I believe that as a country, we can be adaptive in making sure that reforms can still happen in areas where they can happen, and then we don't allow it to happen in a way we can prevent them from happening. For example, I'll tell you one thing. The draft constitution is being given to the president. For me, it's no public health emergency if the president acts on it as soon as possible and sends it to the National Assembly. I don't know if you understand my point.
Maybe, because the president needs. In fact, let's start with what can he do with it apart from reading it?
No, but what he can do is what he should do is to review it. The CRC Act doesn't give a time frame for the president to send it to the National Assembly.
He has powers to keep it for 3 months or so.
No, it's not. There's no time. That is what they missed. Now the president knows that elections should be held late 2021, early 2022. And we have a referendum to do. And this has to go through a whole lot of processes in Parliament. First reading, second reading, here and there. Now, there is no time. Now, for Gambia to be on the safe side, and to ensure that we have value for the $116 million spent on it, I think it's right for the president to act on it as soon as possible and send it to the National Assembly. So National Assembly can start doing their work. So even though the COVID is going, we cannot have the referendum, but so that whenever this whole thing is over, we'll be in a position
where we can just pick
to pick up and go. But if you want to wait with it until this before you act on it, believe me, we are going into 2023, and there is no desire.
Was it not in March that it was sent?
On the 30th of March, it was
sent. So it's only been 30 days or 35 days or so.
Exactly.
Okay.
But
do you still feel that there's time more than enough for the president?
For me, I think it is. I mean, it's a 170, 180 page document.
Yes, yes.
Most of the things are there.
Yeah.
I know that there are certain things that are very contentious,
Yes.
and especially apart from citizenship,
Yeah.
the secularism thing. But there are certain things that don't favor the incumbent, obviously,
yes.
and that is why there are concerns among across society.
And that is, of course, the provision which says that the coming into this force, when the coming into force of this constitution means whoever is in power,
yeah, of
that
course,
term counts as
that
your
no
first.
Gambian shall be president more than 2 in this country,
Yes.
whether it's conservative or not.
Whether it's
So that means, and also there's a provision there which says that this term will count.
Yes.
So
that's
obviously,
where the problem. So
exactly.
Many people feel, including you, that the president might not be happy with if he's aspiring to go for.
I mean, obviously, that's natural that he
But
would want to.
He or his advisors didn't say anything about that.
Yeah, but I mean,
What?
we you see, Gambia is a very small country.
Yeah.
Even though things are not said publicly,
Yes,
but things
you
are
know
said
that.
behind the corridors of power,
Yes.
and there are people who are from the corridors of power who are families and friends. So we hear these things, we know what's happening, we know all the
And
conspiracies
pronouncements that are made in
are
public
going on.
also,
Exactly.
yes,
So for me, I think it's just right for the Gambia.
Yeah.
I know the constitution is not favorable to everyone.
Yeah.
But it cannot just be favorable to everyone.
Everyone.
The most important thing is that we've spent $116 million in this constitution.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of
We
money.
spent a lot of time, energy in this constitution, going around the country, talking to people, doing sensitization,
Yeah. Just-
getting ideas, just to
for
get this
somebody to put
constitution.
it aside
Now
because
we
it
found
doesn't-
ourselves whereby we have two choices:
Yes.
is to pass this constitution or revert back to the 1997 constitution, which would be a disaster for this country.
Okay.
A disaster. I mean, if we really, one of the reasons why Solo Sandeng was killed, one of the reasons why people came out to say we want reform, want change,
Yes.
is because we were taught that the playing field was not level.
Yes.
In for one of the reforms
Yes.
agendas that Solo Sandeng and Co really were fighting for, electoral reforms, that is 50 plus
It's
1.
contained in this
Now that is 50 plus 1 now is in the constitution.
Constitution.
So
And many
I don't
others.
see, and many others that are, even though there are weaknesses, obviously, there are certain things that were supposed to be that are not there. There are certain things that could have been done better.
Yeah.
But again, it's a progressive document. We can amend as long as they're not entrenched, even if they are entrenched.
Yeah.
That is why there are provisions to change, either in parliament or to a referendum. There are always provisions to change. I think the only thing in the constitution, if I get it right, that cannot be changed is the term limit.
That's the term limit.
That no parliament, no
president,
no even a referendum.
So for the president to be dilly-dallying with it is completely useless. He cannot do anything with it.
Yeah, but again, it's just gonna delay the whole process.
Delay the whole
And then what's gonna happen is that we don't know. He might get a team of lawyers
who
to
might
try to
say
challenge some of
trying
the
to and waste
provisions,
time.
and then try to influence parliament to make certain amendments and so on and so forth, and then it can bring a whole lot of waste of time and energy and money again, and we'll focus.
And this same constitution provide for electoral reforms, which include general registration of voters, powers that are going to be given to the IEC to draw constitution boundaries, etc.
Yeah,
All
that is
those
why
are
IEC's name has been changed to IBEC, Independent Boundaries Electoral Commission.
To signify that we don't have time.
No, we don't, because we need to pass this constitution as soon as possible through a referendum, and then make sure we have elections.
At least 50% of the people must participate.
That is the threshold is a bit too high, but I mean, I've made my concerns that the threshold is high, but people are saying, well, it's not that bad, because otherwise it'll be easy for any rogue government to change certain key, provisions in the constitution. Imagine saying 50% must vote, of those registered must vote. But not only that, 75% of those who voted must say yes.
Must say yes.
For it to be passed. So even if 73% said yes, it means that we are reverting back to the 1997 constitution. But again, another question is that people don't really ask, that I sometimes ask myself, is that could we have produced the same piece of work without going through the whole complex process of the CRC, just by amending certain things in Parliament and save money and time and cost? Because for me, even though there are new provisions in the constitution, but again, was still going to be a referendum, because there are certain clauses which are entrenched clauses that can only be amended through a referendum. But again, nonetheless, what has happened is that there is a constitution, a draft, that by and large captures the aspirations
Yes.
of many Gambians, because the CRC did its homework and made so not only they go around the country talking to Gambia, but also they provided a window where Gambians can send in their views and what they want to be in the constitution.
Let me drag you into, it's a little bit off track, a little into small controversy. Did you follow suggestions by a certain lawyer that this constitution in fact is plagiarized from the
Yes,
reference?
I've read that, but I'm not convinced, because I'll tell you one thing: most new constitutions use a similar template. Most new constitutions, whether it's Kenya, whether it's Guinea-Bissau, whether it's Sierra Leone, there's a template that they draw inspiration. I think the only constitutions you can tell me will be unique in its sense is the American Constitution, which is almost 30 days old.
Hardly anybody tried.
Exactly, and the UK doesn't have they don't have a kind of a coded constitution, so for them it's a different ball game. But most old constitutions, yes, but most of these new constitutions, obviously, they draw inspiration from each other. I mean, if you tell me that you've plagiarized the CRC, you can also tell me plagiarized also the TRRC, because TRRC also draw inspiration from South Africa.
They even brought experts and went to countries.
Exactly. So for me,
but the lawyer Dabo seemed to suggest that there could be some things that we can Gambianize, the peculiarities in our nation that should have been. That's quite different from what we have.
Yeah, but like what, for example?
He wants to believe that the constitution is too, the plagiarism is too evident, that some of the things are not even applicable in our.
I mean, obviously, I'm not very familiar with the details of his argument. I think I would really love to do that. But for me, I think for now, I think we should try just to see how we can.
It got a lot of condemnation.
Yeah, how we can work together. For me, I don't buy the idea of plagiarism, to be honest. I mean, even I might agree with him that we could have done some things better. We could have Gambianized some things. We could have maybe some things might be alien. But again, you have to understand one thing, that most post-democratic African societies share the same problems. They also share the same problems and the same idea. That is why, especially with the 50+1%, that is why after this transition in Liberia, after the civil war, when they transitioned into democracy, they also had that in their constitution. Sierra Leone had it in their constitution, Guinea-Bissau in their constitution. So obviously, what we try to avoid is that we realize that most of the problems that were caused, that led to civil wars in those countries, is because of the electoral system itself was not really consistent with the local realities. It became too tribal, too ethnic, and too regional. So therefore, to avert that situation, we say, you know what, before you have the popular, you must get 50+, and many other things. I mean, obviously, he's a very fine lawyer, Mr. Dabo. I like him a lot. I enjoy his readings, and I think he's got some very good points that Gambians can learn from, the CRC can also learn from. But the issue of plagiarism is where I really don't agree with him.
All right, let's move on again on the same topic, the processes that we talk about. We talk about the CRC. Now, what about the TRRC? The fact that there's no public hearings, we saw a lot of adverts these days. They're still asking people who might know of one thing or the other to come forward. And then there is still victims who are still crying that they still haven't got compensation. The government has only given $50 million, which everyone agreed is just a drop in the ocean. And the process is also suffering from the COVID. What do you think the TRC could have done, even within this COVID period? Of course, they said there are committees, or there are other committees are working, some at home, some at home.
Yeah, but obviously, I think the TRRC, I'm not sure why they have a long break. Is it because of they don't have witnesses?
Well, they normally
or is it because of the COVID-19?
Well, yes, they often have a break in Ramadan. I remember that.
I understand, but Ramadan is over.
But then they said they wouldn't resume until June anyway.
And for me, why should they even have a break in Ramadan? I mean, they didn't have a break in Lent.
Yes,
Did they have a break in Lent? They didn't have a break in Lent. So why have a break in Ramadan? People go to work in Ramadan. I mean, we spent a lot of money.
Yeah. And
on the TRRC.
Couldn't they have gone, like you said? Is it a case of lacking in witnesses, or because they could continue with the public hearings?
That's what I'm talking about, by following guidelines, by making sure from home. Exactly. So it's not a place where people are crowded. They could even say, you know what,
they can prevent
no audience from
only
no public, but only the witness and the commissioners who can exercise social distancing, and also the how do you call it, the chief, the council, and so on and so forth. But again, so for me, I don't think.
Do you think the COVID just provided them an avenue to probably say, oh, okay, here is a respite. Let's go back and look for more witnesses.
But if that is done, then that is fraudulent. They need to be honest with the Gambian people. I mean, for me, we spent a lot of money with the TRRC, and it's a process we have so much confidence in. Yeah. If they are struggling to get witnesses, let them tell us that, so that people can
because
find
the advertisements they're coming out. So
exactly. So people know that is the situation.
Yeah.
But they cannot just use the COVID-19 as an excuse. For me, the COVID is not an excuse. For me, if it's the COVID-19, that is why they're not having hearings, then that is very, very unfortunate.
Well, they said they started public hearing. The Ramadan is aside, but they said there can be public sessions. They call it public. But like you said, as everything else has been done, they could still do public hearings without the public being there.
If
they even have a more effective means of getting the public without getting near them, by television.
Exactly. So we can watch from home, because now if the education system, which is much more complex, which includes large crowds and oversized classrooms, is able to quickly adapt and provide classes for students on TV and online, I see no reason why the TRRC could not continue hearings. Then again, they need to be honest with us and tell us why they're not having the hearing.
And again, this one falls more on the government, because actually it's the government who should do the compensation. It's been almost half a year since they provided initial 50 million monetary.
But what can 50 million do?
Yes.
And also compensation comes in different forms. That is why one of the things, one of the key things we fail to, for me, my problem, I like the TRRC, I like the process, I like everything about it. One thing that I really had a problem with is that before it was set up, it wasn't subject to public debate as to what kind of truth.
But then they were all over the country consulting.
But consultation is different. No, already it was set as to how it would be. The framework was already set before they went for public consultation. In the consultation, they didn't even ask people, how would you want it to be named?
I see.
I don't even understand my point.
Yeah, but all over the world it's called Truth Commission.
No, but it depends. I mean, if you look at it as TRRC, truth, we want to know the truth. The R is reconciliation. The other R is repatriation. Perhaps some people wanted just a TRJ, a truth, justice and a TJR, truth, justice and reconciliation. So if you look at the order if you look at the TRRC Act, there is no single word on justice there. It means that the focus, I'm not saying that is wrong. What I'm saying is that it could have been subject to
recommendations that the government can work on, and that would include some dispensation of justice.
Yeah, but I understand that point. But sometimes it's difficult. I mean, we've looked at most of the, but what is justice? I mean, reparations can be justice, because justice for me might not be justice for you. If you ask me, perhaps, if you ask me, whose father was killed by the former government, and you tell me what is justice for you, I'll tell you, well, for me, justice closure is if you bring Jama to justice and I know he's on mile 2. For example, I'm just an example. For you might tell me, well, it's because I lost my job. I could not pay fees for my kids. For me, as long as I get my job back and my kids are back to school on scholarship, that is so. For me, even the concept, the word justice doesn't mean there is no national consensus on what.
It always difficult to satisfy everybody.
It is, but it's difficult. But okay, we understand that. But as long as you subject it to national debate, you tend to hear different viewpoints, and you tend to move along those lines. But for me, right now, I said it's still too early to do a post-mortem on the TRRC. Because it's not finished yet. We'll only be able to do a proper post-mortem on the TRRC when it's over, its recommendations are out, and then we'll see whether the recommendations will be implemented to the latter. We've seen the same thing with the Janneh Commission. They did a fantastic job by unearthing most of the financial malpractices that took place in the Janneh era. But when it comes to implementing, we see some selective justice there. And it means that, so what will happen with the TRRC? With the people face, those who bore responsibility for the most heinous crimes, will they face justice? Will they be taken to prison? Will they be taken to court? How long will that court process be? The TRRC is not a court. They'll recommend for prosecution. How long will that prosecution take? I mean, that might also be another long look at the mile 2 9 case. It's still dragging. I cannot believe that those guys are still in mile 2.
They're still there up to 3
I mean,
years,
it's either you do a speedy trial and find them guilty and convict them, or you let them go home if you have no evidence. But keeping those guys there for almost 4 years, I mean, that doesn't tell well in our new democracy. And other factors. So that is why I said it's too early for us to do a post-mortem. When this whole thing is over, when this whole transition is over, when all these reforms are over, and they submitted their report, and then we'll see exactly whether we've had a successful transition or not a successful depending on whether we are going to implement, whether those who bore the greatest responsibility will face justice or not, whether those who really suffered under Jame will be compensated. Whether the country will heal, whether we'll have closure. All these things is too early to tell now, because the country is still divided along political, along religious, along political lines, and all these are aftershocks, afterquakes of the dictatorship. And these are, and now our job now is to make sure we mend these divisions. Our job is to heal the nation. Our job is to make sure those who bore the greatest responsibility face justice. Our job is to those who suffered on the heinous crimes on the Jame, they are given closure and also they are compensated. Now, when that is done, and we saw the country has healed, and we are moving on, our democracy is consolidated. We are no more a fragile democracy. We've seen one electoral turnover after another. We've seen the constitution is passed, and not only passed, but also people living by the dictates of the constitution. We see that there is separation of powers. We see that the National Assembly's powers are being exercised. The executive powers are being exercised. The judiciary is emboldened and strengthened. We see all these things happen, then we know our transition has succeeded. But if that doesn't happen, then that's a gross failure on our part.
Good. Let's now turn to the university. You are the Dean of Political Science.
Head of the Political Science Department.
Science, or whether you call it Dean or not. But then you have been affected by the COVID. We still haven't COVID, how is its impact on various things. Let's come home near to you. How did it affect your work and the work of the universities?
Obviously, I mean, 9 out of 10 children is forced to stay at home because of the COVID-19. Obviously, most universities, even in Sweden, where they have a very liberal approach in terms of the measures they apply for the coronavirus, they've closed universities. It's only primary schools and high schools and those that are left open. Now, obviously, nobody was expecting.
In our case,
nobody was expecting this.
Absolutely.
In the sense that we had a calendar. We almost have a calendar at the university. That this semester, these are the activities. Classes were set, timetable was set, everything was set. We started in February. And in March, or I think end of February, this thing. So it means that we did only 1 or 2 classes this happened. Now we had a choice of not doing anything, and we have a whole semester lost. It means that it is going to delay those who want to graduate. But then again, the Vice Chancellor and the Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences and a few of us had the foresight to say, you know what, why don't we go online and have classes online? There are those who are skeptical at the beginning that, oh, it's not possible because of what they, technology is one, but the adaptation to technology is another thing. It's not the internet and so on. And we said, I commend Professor Gomez, to be honest. He was very strong at that time to say, you know what, he was very optimistic that it is possible. Let us just go about it. So we had the VC set up a task force, and then I was part of the task force. Prof. Gomez was heading the task force, and then we started work with the IT team, who really did an amazing job. Gave us many options, either through WhatsApp or through Zoom. So it gave us many options, and then the VC, we had a meeting and said, you know what, now go create a framework based on the final option, which is the Google Classroom, and bring and see what and how we can engage the ministry.
How does it work, this Google Classroom?
So what we can do is we engage the ministry as well, because it's the line ministry. And they spoke with the GSM operators who are ready to give us. So we use Google Classroom. Google Class is a platform that is mostly used for learning. So whereby you can have interactive video sessions, and whereby in these interactive video sessions you can also share the PowerPoint presentations. So currently one of my classes, research methods, I have about 200 students there. In one class I have about 180 students who can join that class. Really? Of course, yes. And it's like interactive live. They can see my PowerPoint presentation, and then they'll be also asking questions. And when this whole class is over,
so you basically create a classroom online.
Of course, I mean the world is moving, and that is why I think one of the things I want us to touch before we are done with this interview is the opportunities this COVID-19 has created for the Gambia.
The creativeness.
The COVID-19 has done two things. It has laid bare our vulnerabilities as a country. In terms of our in terms of infrastructure, IT infrastructure, in terms of our ability to be able to take care of ourselves, in terms of our resilience to shocks that are not expected. It has done that. But it has also created opportunities for us. Look, today, I want to urge the UTG that going forward, they should set up an e-learning center. Because let me tell you something. These viruses, they'll come back.
They will come.
This is not the end of it. They'll come back. And if they come back, we're going on a lockdown again. We should be ready. So it's an opportunity. So what this has done is that we've gone online. We have about 800 courses that are online as we speak. And what we have done is also to provide free internet to the students.
I had a bit of a controversy in that. How did you manage to get the, GSM companies, how do the students get megabytes?
No, what we did was that we spoke to GSM companies, and because it's a crisis, some of them really understood. Like Gamtel, they provide the students with free internet from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on a daily basis.
They identify this student? You give them
no, the students has to go and register on the portal.
Okay.
And they add their number that they are using.
Right.
So those numbers are given to the GSM. So if you are using QCell, you give your number to QCell. Okay. So what QCell has done is not free internet. What QCell has done is that they let students access the Google Suite for free.
I see.
But again, also the Gambia government, the Ministry of Finance, plus UTG, in combination will pay for 1.5 gig for each student per month to use to do their research. But for join the classes, that is for free. Students can join for free. But we give them extra 1.5 gig for them to do for research purposes that we pay. It's not that bad. So the GSM operators also really came halfway through to understand. But again, like I said, we were not I told them from the beginning, we cannot expect to have a perfect system.
Yes.
Because this is something we've had, all of us are in uncharted territory. We've never tried it before. It's the first time we are trying. Some will not be able to access some, but as long as the idea is to leave no student behind. But what we've done is now that most students are online. There are glitches once in a while. Some have internet problems. Sometimes the system is down. But again, at least we'll get a situation whereby at least the semester will not be lost, and we'll develop on this thing as we go, as mistakes come about.
And still there is no certainty as to what normalcy will return.
We don't know. Like I said, the current state of public emergency ends on the 16th.
Yes.
Now,
16th May.
Yes.
And then, okay, what would you have, from your perspective, what would you have loved the government to extend in given our local situation now?
For me, I don't think extension is the solution to the problem.
Is it because where the people are talking about easing lockdowns?
Yeah, but look, let me tell you something. Currently, we have this public emergency in place, but it doesn't look like it. The implementation is a problem.
Many are not happening. Like
no, exactly. So no, go to Bara. Go to the ferry, go to the markets, go to the streets, go to Tangi. So I think that is why I said from the beginning, from the outset, we should, you see, if you look at other countries, they did a lot of education. I mean, you cannot come up with measures without the public understanding why they have to exercise these measures, why they have to comply with these measures.
There's a lot of sensitization too.
Yeah, but the sensitization mostly focuses on the virus itself. Exercise social distancing, do this, do that. But why should I do that? The people don't know. People have to go and eat. People have to go and find food. People have to go about their daily business. And the human nature is. Mine is like that. As long as you're not seeing body bags being moved up and down, we think, it's not a serious case. I don't even understand.
But I think we have seen a lot of that in the media, in Europe, the devastation it caused in America, in Europe, that's enough for us.
Yeah, but that it's too distant away. I mean, okay, this is Italy, in Gambia. Yeah, I mean, if those things are not happening,
but we had Gambians dying in England and other places.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, you see, it's not so very much close to us, and understand that we can feel that this is real. We're not, for example, today, there is no household in the Gambia here today where you say somebody has died of coronavirus. Yes. The only death we have, in fact, died after we knew that he had it after he died. Yes. So if people have started going to having funerals in their homes that have coronavirus, then we'll take this thing seriously. We saw the damage that how HIV/AIDS ravaged most of South Africa. So that was real. People saw it. They were living with it. We see one family all wiped out because of but here that's not happening. But what we need to do still is to do a lot of education, a lot of sensitization, and I think we should be very, very, very careful in terms of the extension of the public emergency. Is it necessary or not? I think that is why always government, you bring your experts. Bring your experts and sit and think and say, what do we do? Should we extend it or not? Because extension has also implications. Like I said, you are telling us, okay, another 3 months to stay at home. And what does that mean? Do you understand my point? What does that mean? That means a lot. Another 45 days. That means a lot. It means that people don't have still essential stuff will be closed. It means this university schools will be closed. It means that but what are these? How do you mitigate some of the repercussions of this? Like I said, the bag of rice will be finished before next week.
Absolutely.
The bag of sugar will be finished before next. So what do you do now? And therefore, it's always important for government to sit and bring all its experts. And like I said, yes, they have epidemiologists who understand the virus, who try to understand the virus, but they need the social scientists and economists who understand the impact of this virus on society and how we can respond to make sure we mitigate the impact.
All right. Finally, Doctor, you also have some interest in politics. I don't want to talk long about it, about CA. You're a founding member of Citizen Alliance. Why do you take interest in politics when you could have only stayed in the classroom teaching others? Of course, the governments would always say political science schools are always the breeding ground for troublemakers. Why do you think it is necessary to throw your heart into politics?
I mean, obviously, I think every citizen who cares about the Gambia should take an interest in politics. Now, taking an interest in politics doesn't mean that you have to lead. It means you take part actively in politics, either by joining a political party or by taking a position in a political party, or however you might want to take part. Now, what we've observed in this country is that since independence, despite our huge potentials in this country, yet we cannot show for it. We cannot.
Is it because the right people are not into politics?
I mean, it's a combination of many factors, and that is one of them. Now, at independence in 1965, our population was about 300,000 people. And we had a lot of resources. We have a lot of goodwill. And today, we are 2.2 million people. Yet, our situation is worse off than it was 2-3 decades ago. Now, we are projecting that in 2050, will be 5 million people at the current rate of productivity. Now, therefore, and as societies get complex, as problems get complex, we need everybody who has what it takes to join politics. So we join politics because of that we believe that right now the country needs its citizens who understand the complex problems and can find solutions to these problems to join politics. I mean, yes, obviously, I've been teaching at the university for 10 years. My mission is accomplished. When I came home in 2009 from Europe, after staying many years in Europe, and I decided to come home, I said, where would be the best place for me to go to? At that time, I wasn't very happy with the government in place. I didn't want to work for any ministry. I said, look, the place is the university. Because I was thinking post-dictatorship, that there'll be a time when we will want to build this country. And we need a reservoir of armies who are going to build this country. But these armies, without the right tools and the right equipment to fight this war, to move this country, they'll be useless. And where do we train and equip these young member of armies is the university. Is when I came to the university. And 10 years now, really, to be honest, we've really, a lot of young people have gone through our hands, and they are ready for nation building.
And that is, they are ready for politics.
They are ready for, not but you see, what is politics? Sometimes there are these misconceptions about politics. We think politics, it comes with pejorative connotations. The politicians are corrupt, they are deceitful, they are fraud. No. Politics is nation building. It's about how do we really change our lives? How do we develop this country? Anybody who is interested in politics.
And in fact, it's the field that drive all these things together. Of
course, yes. Without politics, there'll be anarchy in this country. Where nothing works, everything is politics in this country. But for us, it's about how we really use the little knowledge we have to make sure we contribute to nation building. And that is the approach we are taking. That, look, the country has a lot of problems. You name it. Education system is plummeting. The quality is not there. Relevance is not there. Because still we fail to reform the education sector. It is still built on a colonial mentality. You know, the health sector, forget about it. It's dwindling. Infrastructure is poor. Transport is not there.
It takes politics to change this.
Obviously. So obviously, coming into politics, we need a new visionary, innovative set of politicians who understand these complex problems, who can anticipate our problems. Not only the problems we have today, because any serious, innovative, visionary politician must be able to anticipate problems. You should be able to now, today, know that in 2050, these are going to be our problems in the Gambia. And start, because you don't wait until the problem strikes and you solve it. You solve it, you start solving it now, so that when it strikes already, you've already solved the problem. And we believe that we have those kind of, not only the training, but also we understand these things. And we believe that it's time for us to also come and help in nation building.
Yes, but the trouble is that, finally, Doctor, is that you are talking about ideas, which is what politics should be based on. But in the Gambia, people hardly vote for ideas. They vote for people and personalities. Now, we've had people like you, intellectuals, come into the scene in the PDOIS. For 30 years or more, they've been struggling to change minds of people, you know, to vote on ideas. It is impossible. How do you think things can change?
That has been the problem. Things can change through, again, you see, the fundamental problem this country is facing is because of our education system. It is not creating the Gambian that can build the Gambia. It doesn't create the Gambia that is desired. Now, obviously, like you said, politics is about, it's a contest for ideas.
Exactly.
Today, for me, my wish is that the 2021 election should be the real contest. It should be a duel of ideas. Not, I mean, if you remember in 65, it was about independence. The founding fathers, those who campaigned to be elected by the people of the Gambia, were having one message, that is independence for the Gambia. In 2016, it was about democracy and human rights. I didn't remember any politician who was campaigning in 2016 who was talking about development. It was about the democracy, because that was what was topic. But 2021, now because we have independence, now we have democracy, at least some modicum of democracy. Now it's development. We want to move ahead as a country. We want to build a country for the future. It's only ideas. Now it has to be a contest of ideas. Who's got the best development agenda, the best blueprint for the Gambia? That is realistic, and not just a vision, an illusion. Not an illusion, but a vision for this country, with timelines, with realistic, I mean, in terms of our finances, where will we get the money from? What kind of country we want to build? What reform do we need to do? Do we need to reform the whole health sector? Perhaps yes. Do we need to reform the education sector? Perhaps yes. We forget one element in this country, our children. We always forget youth, women. Children, they constitute 15% of our population. What do we do for them? How many public nursery schools do we have in this country?
Public ones are
public, no.
Well,
so that is why our women are struggling, because you work at the bank, you cannot afford a private healthcare sector, and you know the home as a social, how do you call it, as a social place whereby they can help, you know, keep your child when you go to work. These people are going out to work. So society is changing. So we need to start thinking, how do we build more nursery schools so that women can be able to go to work, yet they have a place where they can keep their children safe. Today, look at the way we are building our country. We are selling every piece of land without thinking, planning for the future. There'll be a time where there'll be no football field in this country. Because all the land is being sold by estate agents who are not regulated. What they are building is homes for rent, stores, and petrol stations. Now, we're not living space. Today, we're not building green spaces, whereby we say recreation spaces, where people can go and sit and relax and get fresh air. We're not building football fields. Every community in this country should have a football field, should have a hospital, a clinic, and also a youth development hub where youths can go and do all sorts of exercises, and schools. But we're not doing that. We're just building and building, and that is why, for me, the future of this country is in rural Gambia. Because we might be forced to move to rural Gambia, and that should be now the core of development of this country. That should be the nucleus of development of this country, because that's where the space is. That is where we can build resilient communities. That is where we can build communities that our children can have playgrounds.
I hope not some real estate developer is not listening to you, Ross, there again.
No, but again, I think government needs to act now. You see, you have to understand one thing. The Gambia doesn't belong to me and you alone. It belongs to generations yet unborn. When they come, they must find a Gambia here where they can also live in dignity. If we sell all the land, if we build petrol stations and houses in all the land, and my grandchildren come in 25, 40, 50 years, what will they find here? Nothing. If we deplete all our ocean resources, if we deplete all our forest resources, if we deplete all our everything that we have, what happens to the next generation? What will they find here? How will they survive? I mean, we are here today is because the previous generation.
Yeah.
You can tell Jawara that you did not build skyscrapers.
Yes.
I'll agree.
Yeah.
You can tell him that you did not build big roads and highways. I agree.
Yeah.
But he did two things.
Yeah.
He was able to cobble a nation together.
Exactly.
A nation state in very difficult times after independence, and he was also able to maintain the peace and social cohesion. Now it's our turn to pick up from there to build a country.
He was building a nation,
of course,
which is
exactly. In fact, post-colonial, post-independent African presidents have a very difficult task.
Yes.
That is to build a coherent nation, because you have to understand the colonial project put communities together in latent hostility.
Exactly.
Look at Nigeria alone.
Exactly.
You put the Yorubas and the Igbos and the House of Fulanis in one country and you call it Nigeria. Totally different heritage, totally different language, and it's still causing problems in Nigeria. Yes. In Sudan, you put the Bantu-speaking Africans in the same country as the Arab-speaking Africans. It's causing problems. In Chad, the same thing. So all this post-colonial, in Kenya, you put all these tribes there. So they did a fantastic job in make sure that they maintained, even though our borders were arbitrary, but they maintained at least a semblance of cohesion and a nation state in place.
They did that as the pioneers.
Exactly. Now our role as the new pioneer politicians is to build a country for the next generation, and that is very important because they will come. They will come. Absolutely. What will they find here? And I'm very worried about this country. The rate at which we are destroying our environment, the rate at which we are depleting our marine resources, the rate at which we are depleting our sand resources. If you go to the quarry, you'll be shocked. You will understand that there's a looming environmental disaster facing this country. The rate at which we are not building a country so that our children, name me one place where you go and you see parks where children can go and play. It doesn't happen.
Everywhere
no football fields.
People, youths,
exactly,
and adults as quarreling over land to be used for football.
We are selling everything, and eating the money. Everything we are selling and eating. We are not properly planning. I mean, that is why today there's a traffic disaster in this country. It takes you hours from traffic light to. Because that is why we need to start thinking going to the rural areas and taking development. And that is why, and by doing that, the dichotomy of rural urban will be blurred. There will be no rural, there will be no urban, because we take development into that part of and build a new Gambia, using the rural areas as a nucleus.
Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, Head of Political Science at the University of the Gambia and a member of the, well, I'll call it the Opposition Citizen Alliance,
yes.
Has been our guest, and really, I really believe that you've enjoyed the last hour or so on the brunch on Kerr, Fatou, because this is where we will draw the curtain on this particular edition until we come back your way next Saturday. Doctor, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cham. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure having you. I wish we could have. I know you as a sports, not only a fanatic but as aficionado. I would have loved to discuss Gambian sports with you, which really we are focusing on other issues. We've forgotten about Gambian sports, which really needs some salvation.
Absolutely, that also suffered a lot. Because of the COVID and even before. So
even before, of course.
That's a subject for another day.
Exactly.
But until then, thank you very much for watching us from wherever you are, and goodbye.
We live in a day and age where technology is creating a world without borders, filled with unlimited potential to improve the lives of the people around us. Innovarex Global Health ushers in a new way of leveling the playing field with increased access to quality healthcare services delivered at your doorstep. Our qualified professionals are equipped with state-of-the-art point-of-care testing technology to conduct tests such as kidney function, liver function, electrolyte tests, body composition, hemoglobin, A1C, and many more services with the highest efficiency in delivering results. The addition to our flagship Wellness on Wheels, more fondly known as WOW Delivery Service, brings the entire clinical experience full circle. IGH has remained committed to creating the future of healthcare delivery, Gone are the days of sending loved ones outside the country for basic medical services. Innovarex Global Health offers a new peace of mind and takes pride in delivering the quality of care we all deserve.
Domoro kadiate
boy janno Ceesay restaurant
e sai nakko be ninna dimbal nimbe domoro kala janno
domoro seneyata adiyata topotoro fanan kende ma bije luntan during tamala abeka domoro ki janni adi manda wala de te ka we bijele anim fanan ka fadi jang ikono e fa e ka fa minne ko pastry anim bakery iko fanan be kalele badde lomba conference lomba workshop lomba ye fo fendin lon dunia kono domoro betama nyillom international to wada number 1
amanke ba domola jandama
e sa domo jang is atariya
wo mu kubandi
sa nakko sa futandin
e oto sa nakko be mu Ceesay restaurant
dafa na jannamu yat ni manje dorom bija
aban
Ceesay restaurant, known for best quality food and customer satisfaction.
Miss V Designer Outlet is the #1 quality and affordable stop shop for all your needs. Get your evening dresses, suit and ties, office wears for both ladies and gentlemen, beach wears, sport wears, pure leather shoes for men, quality belts, bags,